I never thought moving could be this stressful. The boxes were piled up in my small car, the furniture squeaking as I carried it through the narrow hallways of the apartment, and the stairs smelled of old wood and something musty I couldn't quite identify. My apartment was on the third floor, windows overlooking the courtyard, where a few cars sat, but no people. Everything felt quiet, much quieter than I was used to. On the first day, I only unpacked a few things, arranged the essentials: bed, desk, wardrobe. I barely slept, too nervous, too excited, everything too new. I hadn't met the neighbors yet, and the building was strangely silent, although you could hear the usual sounds of pipes and doors. In the evening, there was a knock. I opened the door, and a man around my age stood there, friendly. His name was Tom, living 2 floors down. He smiled and introduced himself briefly. "Welcome to the apartment," he said. I nodded. It was a harmless moment, but I felt a slight chill. On the second day, I brought more of my things into the apartment, trying to unpack some boxes. I noticed sounds barely audible at first. Footsteps, soft knocking, like someone was moving through the building. I thought it was Tom or one of the other neighbors and ignored it. On the third day, I met Sarah, a woman from the second floor. We spoke briefly about the weather, the apartment, the area, all harmless, friendly. Then she casually mentioned, "Do you know something terrible happened here once?" I laughed nervously. "No, what happened?" She looked at me seriously. A killer, years ago, with a chainsaw. It was horrible. They say some say it's cursed or something. I felt a knot in my stomach. Of course, it sounded like a legend, a neighborly rumor, but in that moment, everything felt different. The following days went normally. I unpacked and settled in. But the sounds continued, especially at night. Steps approaching my doors, sometimes soft knocking. I spoke with Tom and Sarah about it. Tom laughed. "Ah, the old stories. I've lived here for years. No one ever." He stopped, looking at me as if he sensed I wasn't joking. On the 5th day, it started getting really unsettling. I lay awake late, hearing voices, whispers, sometimes noises that sounded like someone climbing the stairs, but when I looked, there was no one. Once I saw a shadow move in the hallway, quick, barely noticeable, but unmistakable. I tried to convince myself it was my imagination. Then, on the night of the 7th day, I woke up. Sounds. Soft creaking of doors, the typical scuffing of steps on old floorboards. I lay still, holding my breath. Then a sound that made my blood run cold. A loud, metallic screech, like a chainsaw, only briefly, then silence again. My heart raced. I got dressed, grabbed a flashlight, and cautiously walked through the hallway. Door was open. Light spilled onto the carpet, and something I couldn't comprehend at first. Blood everywhere. The apartment was chaos, furniture overturned, broken glass, red splatters on walls and floor. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I could hear it. Then I heard it. The hum of the chainsaw, this time closer. Not outside, not on the street, right in the hallway. I screamed quietly, ran back to my apartment, tried to lock the door. But the sounds got closer, heavy steps, then the creak of stairs, as if he was coming up to my floor. I grabbed my things and ran. Through the hallway, down the stairs, everything chaotic. The buzzing, the screech of the chainsaw behind me, heavy breathing, aggressive. I flung the front door open, ran into the darkness of the courtyard, looking for cover. No car, no person, only shadows. I knew he was there, somewhere. I ran around the corner and found an old basement door, opened it hastily, stepped inside. It smelled of mold and mildew, the air thick, barely any light. I crawled behind boxes, hid behind shelves, and now I'm here, on the floor, trembling, phone in hand. I'm writing this while I can hear his breathing, the sound of the chainsaw, the screeching getting closer. He's looking for me. I don't know how much longer I can stay here. The basement door creaks. Steps. Buzzing. He's almost here. And I'm writing this because I have no other choice. That was the part one thought I could keep short, like ripping off a bandage, but it never stays clean. The more I try to say just the necessary bits, the more my mouth stumbles over the pieces I've been carrying around. So if I sound like I'm talking to myself, it's because I am. I've been talking to myself since day one, into the stale quiet and the rattling pipes and that stink in the stairwell that stuck to my tongue like pennies. When I first hauled the mattress up, I scraped my knuckles against the banister and left skin. The banister was lacquered smooth, but there were dents in it, dull little half-moons under the varnish, like teeth had pressed there and been swallowed. I told myself it was furniture damage and not a detail to remember. I was wrong. All the small shit counts in this building. You think I'm dramatic because of the chainsaw word. Trust me, I flinched at the cliche too. But when Sarah said it on the landing on day 3, her face was the color of cold milk and her pupils were big, and the way she swallowed before she said chainsaw told me the word didn't feel cheesy to her. I joked anyway, because talking is a nervous habit and jokes smooth the air. My laugh echoed and flattened. Nothing in the building wanted to carry that sound. Here's a thing I haven't admitted. That night after meeting Tom, after the polite welcome, I watched him from my peephole until the corridor went completely empty. He had a way of turning his head like he wasn't sure which angle he was supposed to show people, like he'd been photographed once and thought it turned out ugly. His footsteps were light. On a wooden floor, light footsteps are good. They don't squeal at you. These did. They squealed like nails pulled from wet wood. He couldn't help it. No one in this place could. In the lobby, wedged crooked into a cheap plastic frame, there was a laminated sheet of rules that I didn't give a shit about until later. The font was a little too playful for a building that smelled like old water and bad memories. Someone had stuck a yellow post-it to the bottom right corner with 3 numbers scrawled in pencil, 237. The pencil had dug little troughs. The graphite had smudged as if a sweaty thumb had pressed on it again and again. I thought it was a locker code. I was wrong. The post-it will show up again. It's one of those things you dismiss until you can't. The rules weren't the standard rent on the first, don't prop the door stuff. They were this. Rule 1, don't use the south stairwell after 11:13 p.m., even if the elevator breaks. Rule 2, if you hear someone call your name from the hallway and you can't see their mouth move, don't answer. If you already answered, flush the toilet and let the tank fill before you speak again. Rule 3, never leave your door ajar to air out the paint smell. Close it fully, latch engaged. Drafts aren't drafts. Rule 4, if the lights flicker 3 times, stand still and count backward from 30. Do not finish at 0. Stop at 1. Rule 5, borrowed tools must be returned before dusk. The basement keeps track. If it asks, say yes. Rule 6, the radiator clanking at 4:07 a.m. is normal. The radiator purring is not. If you hear it purr, put on your shoes, even if you're already in bed. Rule 7, it's safe to call the number on the yellow magnet if you get scared. They're the on-call maintenance team. 2 of those look like jokes. 2 of them are procedural. One of them, number 7, is deceptively safe. I know. I found out the mean way. And that south stairwell thing? South sounds arbitrary when there's only 1 flight up and 1 down. I didn't know which stairwell was which. The building faces a courtyard. You lose cardinal directions when every view is someone else's window. I ripped the little magnet from the fridge when I moved in. It had a phone number printed in blue with a winking wrench guy and the words, "Don't be scared, we're here." I stuck it back on at a crooked angle after the second night when I woke to the faucet spitting brown water and the sound of someone taking slow, deliberate breaths under the sink. I told myself it was my landlord's attempt at community vibe. Later, I called the number. Later, I learned how it really works. The first argument, because you asked for conflict, started with Sarah on the 2nd floor landing. I had a box of books, and I bumped it against the wall under the framed fire evacuation plan. There was this heavy silence spreading around that paper diagram, like even the dust was holding a breath for it. Sarah was coming up with a bag of groceries. We did that choreography of who moves aside where, and she said, "You shouldn't put anything against that wall." I looked at the empty 3 feet. "Why? It's fine." "It's not," she said. They check. Who checks? I was already irritated. My palms were sweaty around the box, and the cardboard was about to give out. The building, she said, and then she flushed because it sounded crazy out loud. Mr. Kern, the super. He's strict. Here bay hostel. A lemon rolled to the top and smacked into the plastic like it was trying to claw out. I said, rules are for people who want to feel like they can do something, not for when an actual thing happens. That didn't make sense until much later. Sarah tilted her head and her hair brushed the railing. I remember that because a hair stuck there for days, the kind of hair that looks alive because it floats with static and taps the wood with a dry little sound only when you breathe nearby. God, I hate that I can recall the sound of one hair tapping. Tom stepped out of somewhere. He always arrived like that, in the middle of tense moments, a pressure valve. Hey, he said, easy, like he was throwing a jacket on a chair. You meeting? Good. We don't get many new faces who stick. Stick, I said. What does that mean? He shrugged. Some folks move in and realize the walls are thinner than they look. That's all. He pointed at the evacuation plan. We had a drill once. Like 5 years ago. Everyone spilled into the courtyard like bugs from a cracker box. He laughed. Sarah didn't. He saw she didn't, and the laugh felt like a dropped spoon. Later, in my kitchen, I scrubbed at a dark, sticky patch by the baseboard that I told myself was spilled soda. It smelled sweet the way only rotting fruit and old blood smell sweet. Thick, almost smoky. I turned on a fan, and it pushed warm air around the room and made the smell lift and settle like someone breathing into my mouth. I texted my friend from my old city a photo of the rules. She sent back a skull emoji and LOL run. I didn't run. I organized my cables. I folded towels like this was manageable. Day 4, I got up at 3:30 because the radiator wasn't purring, but it had the kind of tension on me that made me stand up without thinking. I sat in the dark and listened to the stairwell talk to itself. Footfalls, the soft clicks of nails or screws, a thud like a hip hitting drywall, the long, slow drag of something heavy across a rough surface. No hum, not yet. No blade. But the stairwell had a working vocabulary, and that's a thing you shouldn't ignore. At 4:07, right like the rules said, the radiator started its clank sequence, regular as a metronome. It sounded almost human, or not human exactly, but aware, like it knew the rule and wanted me to know it knew. I made coffee I didn't need and stood barefoot on coal vinyl, sipped and watched the kitchen window, try to decide if it wanted to fog. The courtyard below was a black rectangle cut by a railing. A bicycle flipped upside down like a beetle in the center, its wheels spinning very slowly. I didn't see anyone, but the rear reflector turned and flashed red, white, and I got the stubborn idea someone invisible was riding it. In the afternoon, I went down to the lobby to pick up a package. On the counter where the mailboxes were, there was an incident report form under a plastic paperweight shaped like a fish. Report maintenance issues/occurrences, it said. Somebody had filled it halfway 2 weeks before I moved in. The handwriting was careful to start, then devolved. Light in second floor hall stutters. Smell from south stairs. Saw. The line broke there. The pen must have dug in. Then more neatly, tooth noise behind radiator. I didn't like that phrase. Tooth noise. I put my fingers in my mouth without thinking and dragged my thumb along my incisors and felt the soft give of my own gum. I took the form and folded it into my hoodie pocket because I wanted to read it later alone. That was probably when the building noticed me notice it. By evening, I had a crate of dishes to lug up, and I thought, fuck the rules. I'm using the south stairwell because it's closer to my door. The sign on the lobby wall had a compass rose drawn with a black marker, a circle and 4 points, and someone had scribbled a little triangle to indicate you are here. I held the crate, shifting its weight on my hip, sweat sticking my shirt to my spine, and tried to orient. If the courtyard is north, then the south stairs are the ones near the laundry room. There was a smell there, under the detergent powder, like fresh cut wood and hot metal, the smell you get when a blade heats up and chews through something too thick. I stood on the bottom step and told myself to grow up. The clock over the mailboxes read 11:08. I had 5 minutes till 11:13. Do you know how long 5 minutes can be when you're doing something you know you shouldn't? It stretches. It becomes a hallway where every bulb is going out in slow succession. I hustled up the first flight, breath loud, my thigh burning under the crate. The light above me flickered once. Okay. And then again. Okay. And then a third time, very slow, like a bad wink. Rule 4. Stand still. Count backward from 30. Do not finish at 0. Stop at 1. I set the crate down on the step and stood like an idiot in a stairwell with a ribbon of shadow cutting my face. I counted in my head, but when I reached 23, a voice below my feet said 19. It wasn't mocking. It was trying to help, like a friend who picks up your count on a gym set. My scalp tightened. 18, the voice said, and it wasn't under my feet anymore. It was beside my face like it had leaned out of the wall, breath smelling like cold metal and wet dust. I stopped at 1 and picked up the crate and did not say 0. The light steadied. The steps were different under my shoes, more springy, like there was space behind them where there shouldn't be. I reached the landing and did not look down through the crack between tread and riser. I took the other stairwell the rest of the way up and dumped the dishes and sat on the floor and laughed like a man who hears a joke 3 days late. Tom knocked then. He didn't wait for me to answer before he pushed the door. "Whoa," he said, seeing the crate spilled, and bent to help gather plates. "You okay? You look. I used the wrong stairs," I said. "Don't," he said too fast. "Don't do that." He shrugged again, that shrug he used to fill space. "I don't care about rules, but some rules care about you. I thought you said it was all stories." "It is." He stacked plates. His fingers shook, pretend not shake. "It's stories that got made up to explain after." "After what?" He chewed his lip and looked at the wall. "After it. After the night." He made a chainsaw sound then, quiet, like a joke. He didn't look like he wanted to be joking. "You don't really live in a house until you know how it makes noise," he said. "Anyway, you want a beer?" I said yes, because saying no felt like closing a door, and closing doors had started to feel like a choice the building might not let me take back. We sat on my floor with our backs to my warm radiator and drank warm beer. He told me about a leak that had rotted the ceiling over the laundry room 4 summers ago. He told me about a cat that vanished from the 2nd floor, and how its collar had been found hooked to a nail in the bottom of a step like someone hung it there by the clasp. He didn't tell me about the killer then. Sarah had. He looked like a man who had decided which parts of the story he could say and was sticking to it like a prayer. Later, after he left, I put the incident report on my fridge with the yellow magnet and realized the numbers on the post-it were the same as the ones etched faintly into the magnet's edge. 237. I peeled the post-it from the lobby rules earlier that day without thinking why, just because it felt like a loose tooth and needed to come with me. Now I stuck on my own rules over the list like a flag claiming land. Day 5 pecked at me. It wasn't big. It was a series of tiny pecks. My door swung open and then shut with a soft click while I was in the shower. The shower curtain brushed my shin and stayed there like a hand. I washed a plate and the water ran red for a second, and then only it wasn't food dye and it wasn't rust because it had a taste when a drop hit my lip that made my stomach try to fold. I wiped the kitchen floor and the rag came up with sawdust. Where from? The baseboards? The door? The building shedding skin. The smell in the south stairwell went from somebody is doing renovation to somebody cut something living and hosed it into a drain. I slept with the window cracked, and I could hear the courtyard bicycles ticking, slowing, cooling, even when no one had touched them. At dusk, I went to return the hammer I'd borrowed from the laundry room shelf. Rule 5. Borrowed tools must be returned before dusk. The basement keeps track. If it asks, say yes. It felt like a joke the first time I read it. I went down, bare bulb, swinging a bug around in circles. The shelf held a mismatched set of tools, the kind you collect when you live in a building for too many years. 2 chipped screwdrivers, a box cutter blade without a handle, a tangle of extension cord, a wood-handled ball-peen hammer with a dense, sticky feeling to it, like it had been near a lot of sugar or something worse. I put the hammer back. The shelf wasn't fixed to the wall. It pressed back at me like it ran into a body and wanted to go through. "Thanks," a voice said from behind the hot water heater. It was the shape of a voice, not a voice, like your ear making up syllables from pipe hiss. "Thanks," it said again, and this time the T clicked like a tongue. I said yes because the rules said to say yes, because it was easier than arguing with a room. The shelf eased, the pressure fell away, and the light stopped swaying. When I turned to leave, I saw a square cut in the concrete wall behind the mop bucket, a covered opening with a hinge. The hinge was newer than the building, steel on old stone, bright like half ideas. Somebody had built a door into the wall and then painted over it. There were fingernail scratches on the paint near the edges, little chips like pale blue confetti. I should have left it. I pressed my palm to it. It was colder than the rest of the wall, and my hand ached instantly. In the paint, pressed shallow, were those same numbers, 237. I laughed then, a noise that sounded mean. I said to the hole, "Yeah, I see you," because I was alone and wanted to feel like I wasn't. I went upstairs and made ramen I didn't eat and fell asleep on the couch with the TV on mute. On the TV, a guy smiled with too many teeth at a woman and said nothing. The captions read, "Chainsaw buzzes softly." It was a car commercial. Day 6 started with Sarah knocking. Not a neighborly knock. 3 hard bursts like someone drumming with their knuckles to keep their courage steady. I opened and she shouldered her way in. She wasn't wearing shoes. Her toenails were painted the same blue as the basement wall. It made me dizzy. "Did you hear it last night?" she said. "What?" "Don't say what," she said. "Say no or say yes, but don't act like you didn't." I sat on the arm of my couch, the fabric warm where I'd been sleeping. I heard the radiator, the bikes, the stair. She shook her head. "No, you know what I mean. She made a shape with her hands, a long throat shape, and then she curled one hand and rotated it, and the other hand jerked like a lever. She didn't want to say the word either. "Heard it?" she said. She was moving too much. Her eyes were doing that fast darting thing, like she was watching flies. "Where?" I said, and my mouth was dry. "In the hall," she said. "Under the floor." And she blushed then like this was the embarrassing part. "On the phone." "What phone?" I knew. "The yellow magnet number," she whispered. "I get scared sometimes." I called, and it picked up, and I heard someone breathing, and it sounded like the hallway when it's empty. I stood. The top of my head felt thin, flimsy. That's probably just the line being old. "Do you think I'm stupid?" she said, immediate hurt. "Do you think I'm playing?" She wasn't. The way she was holding her elbows, the way you hold yourself together when your own body feels like it might come apart, made my throat ache. "I saw something too," she said quieter. "In the mirror in the stairwell. You know that mirror they put up so you can see people coming around the corner?" I nodded. "The glass is warped, right? So everyone looks like they're leaning. I saw a man in it last night behind me, just a sliver of him holding something, and I told myself it was a broom. It wasn't a broom." She put her hands on her own throat. "He was excited. He was giddy. I don't know how I know that. I know because the air got cold like a laugh, and I ran, and my door wouldn't unlock, and I had to." He didn't follow. He stayed on the landing like a dog that's not allowed in a room. He doesn't go past doors that are shut. She was breathing through her mouth. "Let me sit here for a bit. I don't want to be alone." We sat on the floor with our backs against the couch and listened to the building have tiny seizures. Tom texted, "Can I swing by later?" I wrote back, "Got company." He wrote, "Be careful," which I almost ignored because it was the kind of thing you say when you don't know what else. He added, "Don't answer if I call your name from the hall unless you see my mouth." It was a joke and not a joke, and I smiled and hated that I smiled. At around 9, Sarah's neck relaxed. She said she had to go because she hadn't locked her own door. She paused at mine, her hand on the knob. "If you hear the light do that thing, count down," she said. "Don't hit 0. It leaves a mark if you hit 0. I didn't ask what mark. She left, and the apartment felt emptier than it had before she came. like she took something that was cushioning the space, like she took a layer of air. I tried the number on the magnet around midnight. I didn't intend to. My thumb just moved the way you check old numbers by reflex. The line clicked, and then I heard the hallway. I don't know how to say it better than that. I heard my own hallway. There's a texture to your own space's silence. The specific ring the light makes, the faint traffic bleed from beyond the courtyard, the old building moan like someone shifting on a wooden pew. I heard all that, and then the tiniest flutter as if a paper sign was lifting in a draft. I said, "Hello," and the flutter stopped. I heard breath in, not gross heavy breath, but small, business-like breath, the breath of someone waiting to be acknowledged so they could proceed. "Maintenance," I said, to make it stop. "Sorry, wrong number." The breath didn't care what I wanted. I hung up and threw the magnet into the trash, and then, because I hated myself a little, I got it back out and wiped coffee grounds off and stuck it back on the fridge. It's not that I'm superstitious. It's that I was starting to respect how the building liked its props arranged. Day 7, if you want to call it that, days blur into a low fever, was the day the story you already know about decided to happen. I woke to that metallic scream, short and bright, like someone had hit a steel bar in a cold warehouse. It was too clean to be a blade in anything wet. It was the first kiss of a chain catching a sprocket. I sat up and my thighs cramped, and I told myself to be rational. Rational is a word that's heavy until you hold it and realize it's tissue paper. I put on jeans and my shoes, and I stood with my ear to the door. The hallway had the hell breath sound it gets right before a fire alarm screeches. A floorboard somewhere to my right made a long, low complaint like someone was testing its give with a heel. What the hell do you do? What's the correct procedure when your neighbor might be in her apartment and someone is in the hall with, There's no drill for this. There should be another laminated sheet. If the thing from the story starts to go literal. There isn't. There are only the weirdo rules in the lobby that give you little scraps of theater to perform so you feel less like prey. So I put my hand on my latch and I took a breath and I cracked the door about an inch because Rule 3 said to keep it shut, and I wanted to break it to see what happened. The air on the other side was colder in that damp way, like a basement where rainwater lies and never dries. I moved the chain and opened the door wider, and there was Sarah's door across the hall yawning. Her doormat was twisted diagonally, like something had stomped it in anger. Her keys were on the floor, not dropped, arranged, each key laid parallel, a row of thin metal tongues pointing at my feet. I said her name because you say people's names when you want them to become real enough to answer. "Nothing. Sarah," I said again, and the word felt thick in my mouth. I stepped into the hall. My foot hit a slick spot and slid. I grabbed the banister and got splinters. The slick was what you think it was. It made a wide, dumb smear where my shoe went, and the smell came up like steam. Not hot, just present. I picked up Sarah's keys and put them in my pocket. I don't know why. That part doesn't make sense even in hindsight. The keys were warm, like someone had just exhaled onto them. I stepped to her door and said, "I'm coming in," because I wanted the air to know I wasn't sneaking. The apartment looked like it had been shaken by a giant hand. The couch was at an angle. A lamp was on the floor, and its shade had skidded and left a crescent of dust and grit and 2 brown arcs. The kitchen light was on, and the bulb had a halo of flies around it that weren't flies. They were sawdust specks spinning in the convection of heat. They made a sound like whispering rice. I didn't see her right away because part of me didn't want to. I saw the bathroom door first, didn't it? I saw the mirror on the hall wall, cracked down the middle, like it was smiling. I saw the short slashes in the drywall near the ceiling, a series of them, deliberate, like a child marking height on a door frame. I saw a post-it on her fridge, yellow, with the numbers 237 again. My stomach lurched. My eyes hadn't caught up with my brain, and my feet were trying to step around things they hadn't looked at yet. She was in the bedroom. She was mostly in the bedroom. The rest of her was a smear across the threshold. Her face looked surprised. Less the "oh no" surprise and more the "I thought that rule would help me, but it didn't" surprise. I'm not going to describe it. I can describe the way the carpet had a rectangle of cleaner gray under where her low dresser used to be. Something had dragged the dresser out of the way, hard, and then knocked it over. I stepped in something sharp, not bone, a tooth, a molar with a silver filling that caught the light, winking. Tooth noise behind the radiator. The incident report in my pocket got heavier, even though paper doesn't change mass. From the hall, the hum came again, low, revving. Not a full-throated roar. A testing sound. A tease. It came with footsteps, purposeful, not running, the way a man walks when he knows he doesn't have to hurry because he has the plan and the plan is simple. I realized then what the numbers meant. I don't know why my head chose that moment. 237. Second floor. Third floor. Basement. The places the doorways have been scratched into the walls. The sequence the building preferred. Its what? Its scene. Its loop. I knew if I went, he would hurt me. And if I didn't go, he would wait. He had time. He had all the time. I backed out of Sarah's and nearly tripped over Tom, who filled her doorway with his body, hands out. "Don't," he said. His voice was too loud, and the echo hit my face like a physical thing. He took in the room. His mouth did a small O of hurt, and then he shut it. He looked like a man trying not to get his picture taken. "Come on," he said low. "Come on." "You said it was stories," I said. My voice cracked, and he was like it hurt him physically that I believed him. I said what I had. His eyes were not on me. They were on the hallway, a point about 4 feet off the ground at the top of the stairwell where the shadows puddled. He had a hand at my back, and he was pushing me, not hard. He smelled like soap and stale clothes, and beneath that a high, tinny scent like blood left in a metal bowl. "We're going," he said. "You have to go now." "Where?" I said, "Stupid, but that's the question you ask when there are stairs and a man and something humming and nowhere you can see to hide that isn't a trick." "Down," he said. He doesn't like going outside right away. He does the house first. He likes the house. There was a shake in the wall, a subtle flex like the building stretched. The light did its 3 flickers. I didn't count. I didn't stand still. I ran and Tom was at my back, and we reached the landing, and the mirror on the corner showed us tall and bent and wrong. In the mirror behind me, there was a blur that wasn't Tom and wasn't me and had the shape of excitement again, that cold laugh in the air. I didn't look for Sarah in it. I didn't say her name. I had it in my mouth like a penny, and I'd cut my tongue on it if I pressed too hard. On the first floor, I felt the pressure of the building ease, like a hand unclenching. Tom stopped and put his arm across me. "Listen," he said. "I don't want to." "Listen." We listened. The hum was above us now, moving along in a lazy arc, up, across, maybe down again, mapping us. There was another sound under it, a thin, high whine like a very small motor spooling up. "The laundry room," Tom said. "He likes the dryer." "Don't ask me why." "The basement," I said. The word tasted like stale water. "Why the basement?" But I knew. Because the rule said to return tools before dusk, and I had. Because the shelf had thanked me. Because the number said B is in the sequence. Because the small square door behind the mop bucket had felt colder than the wall. Because the building wasn't just stacked floors. It was a throat, and the basement was the part where things pool. We went through the lobby, which looked exactly the same as it had every day, except the fish paperweight had a crack through its tail now, and the incident report was gone. The rules on the wall had shifted slightly, so Rule 7 was at eye level. It wanted my eyes on that line. It wanted me to call. I had called the night before. It had learned my voice. It had mapped my mouth. The magnet on my fridge would be warm right now, like a small animal sleeping. Tom hesitated at the basement door. He put his ear to it. He nodded to himself like he was taking instructions. "Okay," he said, "to me, or to the door, or to both. We'll go to the bikes, then cut across, and what if we just leave?" I said, and even I heard the whine in it. "Just run, out through the courtyard." "You can try," he said, but he has his rhythm. "Out there you're in the wrong part of the song." "Fuck your song," I said, and pushed the door. Basements always smell like basements. This one had that, plus shampoo and gasoline, a recipe you don't want to light. The bully bulb on the first landing was dead. The second one was a dim pearl you only realize is there because everything else is darker. The concrete was damp under my soles. Tom's hand on my shoulder was light. He was listening to the pipes, translating the click language into curses in his head. On the dirt floor at the bottom, somebody had chalked a hopscotch grid. Even in the dark, I could make out the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 3, 7 were smudged, like a boot had ground them. The shelf with the tools faced us like a patient. Its shadow made a rectangle you could step into and not come out of. The mop bucket had tipped and seeped gray water. Behind it, the little cold-hinged door sat flush to the wall. A curl of paint had lifted at one corner like a fingernail growing over skin. "Do you know him?" I asked, which is a stupid question when the him is a story you've chewed with your neighbors. Tom's jaw worked. "He knows us," he said. "He knows how we move. That's what the rules are. They're not to protect from him. They're to keep us moving the same way, so he doesn't have to work as hard to find the lines." He looked at me like he wanted me to get mad at him, like he wanted me to shove him so he could feel something he deserved. "I shouldn't have laughed when you told me about the sounds," he said fast, like he had to push the words out before they backed down his throat. "I thought if you understood you'd leave, and leaving is hard. It changes the pressure." Sarah's keys were in my pocket like small bones. I touched them because I needed something. There was a triangle key I didn't recognize, a strange one. It wasn't hers. It was for a panel. I knew it because it fit perfectly into the square of the little cold door in the wall, even though it was triangle in shape and the square wasn't. Don't ask me to explain the geometry of fear. I turned the key and the door didn't open. The wall exhaled. Yes, I heard it. Yes, I know that sounds stupid. The wall exhaled and the chain hum up the stairs did a little answering growl, like when dogs hear a whistle only they can hear. "Don't," Tom said, very soft, almost tender. "Don't ask it for space. If you ask, it will make it." I pulled the key out. In the dim light, my hands looked like they didn't belong to me, long and pale and not quite aligned with the bones inside. The dryer in the laundry room started. No one had put money in it. No one had clothes in it, not that I could see. It turned, and the belt squealed once, and then settled into a note that matched the hum upstairs, and I realized that this is how it started for them. The old story, the night, the man with the tool he loved. Not just a man, the building's man. The handyman it called when something needed to be cut. Don't roll your eyes. I know, it's ridiculous. It's also how some places survive. They make something hungry a job. "You go," Tom said. He had his hand on my back again. "Hide. Go behind the old shelves. He'll come down and he'll..." He didn't finish. "What about you?" I said, which came out genuine, which pissed me off for some reason. "You just going to what?" "Wait." Tom smiled at a point somewhere past my shoulder. He remembers me. He touched his jaw like it hurt. He owes me a turn. "It's okay." "It is not okay," I said. "What the fuck does that even mean?" "It means he likes you better when you make him work," Tom said, simple like giving directions. "Go. Go now." I didn't go. Not right away. I listened to the dryer belt thrum and the pipes do their thin clicks and the small motor noise build, and I thought of Rule 6. Put on your shoes if you hear it purr. My shoes were on. Okay. Rule 2. Flush the toilet if you answer a voice you can't see. Stupid rule. Impossible rule down here. The only water was in the mop bucket, gray and thick. I kicked it. The water sloshed and hit the drain with a sound like something swallowing. The dryer caught. The hum deepened. The metal screamed again. Not long, just enough to lift every hair on my arms. The south stairwell light above us flickered, once in sympathy, even though we weren't in the south stairs. The building is one set of veins, and every light is a pupil. "Go," Tom said again, and his voice cracked on the G. I went. I slid behind the shelves, my shoulder brushing cobwebs that were not cobwebs but fine, shredded insulation that stuck to my neck and made me want to cough. I suppressed it. I shoved a box aside with my foot, and it tipped over and spilled sheetrock screws like dry teeth. The noise was terrible, like biting into a handful of sand. He would hear that. He would know, because that's the kind of sound that puts a pin in your map. I crouched with my phone cupped in both hands like a prayer. The light from the screen put the smallest scratch of white on the wall and made the gray nude dust glitter. I opened my notes because typing felt like hiding better than breathing. I started writing this, not because I thought anyone would read it, because my head was too full, and if I didn't put something somewhere, I would make a noise, and he would look, and then that would be the last thing I did. Up the stairs, a door opened like a big tongue pulling from the roof of a mouth. The hum had a companion now, the rhythm of someone who knows the weight of his machine and how to carry it, so it doesn't catch until he wants it to. I could hear the cord drag behind, a soft whisper like a snake on carpet. The cord was wrong. It was too long. It went places cords don't go. It went under my feet and through the wall, and it was okay because he knew the lines. He had them all marked. The banging that followed was careful. Not rage, not theater. It sounded like he was adjusting a chair at a dining table. I thought of the post-it, 237. I thought of how I hadn't realized that that was the count of the nights, too. I had started on a Monday. This was Sunday. I thought of the incident report that had ended at SAW, and I thought, fuck it. Say the word, even if it tastes like dumb horror. Say it. You're not a child pretending the thing in the closet won't understand English. SAW, I said, but only in my head, and my tongue made an involuntary shape anyway. He was in the hall outside the laundry room. The noise changed. The blade bit air, then bit something soft that resisted and then didn't. It was not Sarah, because Sarah had already been made into an object upstairs. It wasn't me, because I was breathing into my shoulder and trying to shrink my lungs. It wasn't Tom. Hey, Tom said into that note, his voice low, not commanding and not pleading, the way you talk to a big dog that looks at your face to see what you want it to do before it decides whether to take your hand. Hey, you remember me? The dryer thunked as something heavy settled against its drum from the outside, like someone had leaned on it too hard. The belt squealed again, high and brief like a scream played backward. The hum dipped and then rose, and then the floorboards above me groaned in a pattern I could almost turn into words if I let my brain break along that seam. For a second, the lights went to dim gold, and the pipes shuddered, and the concrete under my feet had the give of a trampoline, and I saw the building the way it saw us. Little heat shapes moving along predetermined tracks, bumping into places the rules have made lanes, flushing when we shouldn't, counting when we should stand still, wearing shoes when the laugh begins in the walls. My phone buzzed in my hand. A notification. A voicemail from an unknown number. The voicemail preview printed out. Scared? We're here. I almost laughed. I almost sobbed. I put the thing on silent and then remembered it doesn't matter. If the building wants a sound, it takes it from you. The hum leaned toward the basement door. The steps came slow and patient, and each step had a little lag in it, like the man was listening to something after each footfall. Maybe listening for breath. Maybe listening for the very small changes in air pressure the living make when they try not to move. Tom said, hey. No answer. He tried again. Hey, you don't gotta. Hey, I wanted to put my hand in his mouth and stop him from making noise. I wanted to put my hand in my mouth and chew off my fingers so I would have something to do besides shake. A new sound then, a small, repeated tap, metal on metal. I knew the rhythm without knowing why. It was the same as the clank at 4:07 a.m. from my radiator. The radiator knows the time. He knows the time. He knows the beat. He counts with us. He expects us to stop at 1. We teach him. I had stopped at 1. He had felt it. Somewhere a mark had gone down. This one follows. This one can be shaped. The basement door creaked. Steps. Buzzing. He's almost here. Before that line pins me to the floor again, I need to tell you the last pieces that fit only because everything else was already in motion. The deceptively safe rule, the one on the yellow magnet, it's not that the number calls him. It's that calling the number means you agree to be timed. They listen for how long it takes you to hang up. If you hang up quick, you're jumpy. If you hang up slower, you're steady. If you stay long enough to say hello and wait for breath, you're showing the building how you handle silence. If you say maintenance, like I did, you're pretending to be in charge, and the building hates it when prey pretends to be predator. It adjusts. It makes your doors stick on that one day. It surprises you with a blade in your head, not to kill you right away, to make you dance. It has a sense of humor like a child pulling wings from bugs. The arbitrary rule about flushing, that one saves your tongue. I didn't believe it. Sarah did. She told me. She knew. I answered a voice I couldn't see. I didn't flush. Earlier tonight, before the hum started, I put my face over my bathroom sink and said hello, and the mirror breathed, and I didn't do the thing you do to reset the air in the room. Now, my mouth feels wrong. The word zero sits on the back of my teeth like a splinter. If I say it, something in the building will tick over into place with a hard clack and a new sequence will start. I can't say zero. I stopped at one. Do you understand? You do. It doesn't matter. The deceptively harmless instruction about wearing shoes? That one's simple. If you have to run, you run. If you slip in blood, you have grip. If you step on a tooth, it goes into rubber and not into your foot. You may still fall. That's okay. Falling is allowed. Falling is part of the choreography. Limping is disallowed. Limping makes you interesting in the wrong way. Tom is talking again. He's not a hero. He's not brave. He's making the sounds the building expects because he has learned to get through nights by staying on the beat. He steps forward when the hum dips. He steps back when the dryer squeals. He is counting not numbers but spaces. He touches the door to the laundry room, and it touches him back and leaves a bright, clean line across his knuckle. He doesn't flinch, which makes me want to cry. He knows where to stand so the shadow doesn't catch his face. He knows, and that makes me sick because it means he has done this before and the building has let him live in exchange for what? For bringing a newcomer into the rhythm. For being the one who says welcome and smiles and shrugs and says it's stories. It's stories until it isn't. Someone has to keep the story dressed. The basement door creaks again, and this time the creak is a little vocal fry like a throat cleared in a meeting. He's at the top of the stairs. He doesn't come down fast. He doesn't come down slow. He comes down the way a doctor walks into a room when the tests have already come back. The air cools in a way that isn't temperature. It's pressure like a storm front pressing. I can hear the cord. It bumps each stair and drags, and then lifts and then bumps again. It's very long. It is as long as the hall. It is as long as your fear. Don't laugh. I'm not trying to be poetic. I'm trying to be exact. It drags like it has a mind of its own, or like the wall wants to taste it each time it goes by. I can smell him now. Not him. It. The components of it. Oil. Hot chain. The sweet sick smear you get when something living is aerosolized and then given back to air. The leftover laundry scent, too, because he brushed against the dryer so many times he carries that fake meadow smell on his sleeves. That's the part that makes the back of my neck creep. The idea of him with laundry sheets in his pocket as a joke to himself or to the building or to us. He stops 3 steps from the bottom. He knows exactly where the line is, where he can see more than he can be seen. Tom knows it too. They stand like that for a second, the way you stand with an old friend you're on bad terms with. Tom says, without looking over, "You should go deeper." I look behind me, and there is nowhere deeper that isn't in the wall. There's a tiny click then, like when you hang a picture and the nail finds the hard part of the stud. The little square door behind a mop bucket flexes. I can feel it across the room, the cold coming like wind, coming not from a place, but from an idea, a negative pressure at the hinge of the building's mouth. "No," Tom says softly, not to me to it. "Not tonight." He steps to block it, and the hum loves that he steps because it gives an excuse. It spools up bright and metallic, and he know. I'm not going to watch Tom. I'm not going to use up the last good part of my head on describing what happens to a man who blocks a door a building wants open. I'm not. You know anyway, even if you don't. You imagine something big and wrong and joyous. and then remove the joy and leave only the motion. That's close enough. I move. I move because stillness is death, and because I can't keep breathing into my shoulder without making a squeak. I slide along the wall, keeping my shoulder on concrete, so I know where my body ends. I step on screws, and I don't let my weight crush them into the floor. I go past the shelf. I find a gap between the hot water heater and the old filing cabinet that holds the ghosts of old leases, corners curled, staples rusted into orange blooms. It smells like wet paper. There are spider egg cases on the underside of the cabinet. They look like tiny felt hats. One of them splits under my breath. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be so close. The hum does a lazy circle. The cord tightens. The dryer stops like a heart that decides it's had enough. The building breathes again, in, and the hair on my arms tips toward the open, toward the square door, and I put my hand on the old file cabinet and feel it hum like a cat. It's purring. Rule 6. Shoes on. Okay. I slip and my knee hits a pipe and it rings like a bell, a clear bright ding that goes up the stairwell like a prayer. He turns. I know he turns even though I can't see him because the hum swings, because the air pressure shifts and the dust moves, and because the cold in my mouth moves from one side to the other like a tongue. Tom says my name. Not like he wants me to answer, like he wants me to know someone knows it. Don't, he says then, a word that means nothing and everything. Here's where we land, because here's where I am. I can hear his breathing, the sound of the chainsaw, the screeching getting closer. He's looking for me. I don't know how much longer I can stay here. The basement door creaks. Steps. Buzzing. He's almost here. And I'm writing this because I have no other choice. Because if I stop, I'll say the last number out loud out of habit, and something important inside me will line up with something important inside him, and the building will laugh, and the lights will flicker 3 times, and I'll finish counting, because I always finish counting, and I'm not. I'll stop at 1, and I'll breathe in, and there will be that cheap meadow smell again, and a cold, bright piece of metal will skate across the air, and then, no 0. No, I'll keep my mouth full of my tongue. I'll bite until I taste that coin taste, and then I'll swallow it. And then at least the rules will be inside me and not on a wall where anything can read them back to me in my own voice. He's on the last step now. I can hear the cord whisper across the concrete. I can see the edge of his boot in that wedge of light, the rubber sole slick with something that isn't water. There's a note in the hum I hadn't heard before, high and almost sweet, and suddenly I know why the laundry room matters. The belt, the way it resists then gives. He likes the give. He likes the part where the house almost fights back. He likes. Sarah's triangle key presses against my hip like a tooth in a pocket. I take it out because my hand needs something to hold. It's warm. It's too warm for metal. It pulses once like a frog. I don't throw it because the building would like me to throw it. It would like to hear that ping and then roll the key somewhere I can't reach, and then tell me in its pipe language how the door behind the mop bucket is open anyway. I don't do it. I put the key in my mouth because I am out of ideas that feel like standing up. It's steel. It tastes like it's been in a mouth before. Tom is saying something. I think he is saying he's sorry. The hum lifts like a question. The light in the stairwell does 1 flicker, not 3, like it's winking at me, like it's saying, do it, finish the count, get over with. I'm at 1. I've been at 1 for a while. I'll stay here. I'll keep my knees against this stupid hot water heater and the old papers pressed to my shins and the little spider hats trembling and the cold from the hinge door moving like a promise along the floor, and I'll listen to the cord move and the tool breath and the building say in all its voices that I am right where it wants me, and I'll keep typing because the shape of letters makes a mesh I can hide behind for another few seconds, and I will not. I hear him tilt the saw. I hear the little choke they do before they rev up once. Hard. I press my tongue down on the key, and the taste of old metal and old spit and sweet rot blooms, and it's so awful it's almost funny. I huff a laugh through my nose, and the laugh unfurls in the dust like a ribbon, and the ribbon makes a shape that the building will remember later, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because he's here, because the step under his boot makes that slow tear sound as it gives, and the corner of my eye fills with a bright hard line like a knife flicking a bar, and the air gets so thin it's almost paper, and I think of the stupid fish paperweight and the crack through its tail, and how even the decoration couldn't hold its shape under the pressure of being looked at too long, and I think of Sarah's hair tapping the railing, and how small a sound that is compared to this big noise that is about to split the world, and I think in a pleading, ugly way of anything that could make a rule that says if you make it to morning you're safe, that the machines go quiet when light comes, that you can open a door and it'll be an actual door and not a throat that you can go. But the only rules I have are the ones on the wall and the one in my mouth, and they don't save you. They shape you so you fit easier into whatever this place is building. He drags the chain an inch across the concrete like a promise, and the dryer, dead and empty, answers with a tiny squeak like a child trying not to wake a parent, and the building breathes in again and presses me flatter, and all I can do is keep typing this, hands slipping, metal taste, breath counting, and hold at one while his shadow takes up the space where mine used to be.